Hi, Tam here. Have you ever been in a situation where you are confronted by some people who refuse to use their brain? They refuse to use common sense. They refuse to think for themselves. So you find a lot of those people, in gatekeeping positions. It's people who refuse to think. So those people have been given guidelines, all right? So they've been given guidelines, a little box, and they've been told, green hat, you don't shoot. Red hat, you shoot. Green, you don't shoot. Red, you shoot. Green don't shoot, red you shoot. And then you see somebody with a green and red hat, and you're like, I'm gonna shoot. Say, wait a minute, my hat is half green. Yeah, but it's also half red. Say, yes, but I can explain. No, but you're red. No, but I'm one of you. Dead. And then you see a red hat, and you want to shoot. But the guy says, wait, don't shoot. I'm one of you guys. Look, I've got my identification. I've got everything. Everything checks out. Say, yeah, but you're wearing a red hat. I say, yes, I know, but there's a story to it. I was working undercover to infiltrate the red hats. And that's why I'm having the red hat, but I'm actually a green hat. No, you have a red hat. You shoot. So you see, there's a lot of people like that, unfortunately, And yesterday, I came face to face with such individuals. And when confronted with such people who refuse to apply common sense to a particular situation, they refuse to think outside their little box of guidelines they've been given, your only option becomes to say, I want to speak to your manager. Yep. So what am I talking about? So back in May, 2 months ago, I had flown to South Africa from Chad. And while I was in South Africa, right, I got vaccinated with Pfizer. So I got my first dose of Pfizer. I got my first dose, everything went well. And then a couple of weeks later, I flew out of the country and I went for a job overseas. While I was overseas, I had the option of getting my second dose of Pfizer, but there were some complications. I had my first dose in South Africa. My vaccination card for the first dose was different from the vaccination card that they were giving in that country, and they were using a QR code, and it was just lots of bureaucracy, and it was going to be complicated. And they said, yes, you can get your second dose here, but the best thing to do would just to go back where you got your first dose, and that way there'll be a continuation in your vaccination card. Your vaccination card will read first dose, second dose, if the serial number of the first dose and the second dose, so things were explained. So I said, okay, no problem. I was planning to go to Singapore and Kuala Lumpur. But no problem, what I'll do is I'm gonna fly back to Johannesburg, South Africa, get my second dose there because I got my first dose there. And from there, continue and go to Singapore and then Kuala Lumpur, and then, the journey continues, right? So I landed in Johannesburg. I showed up at the vaccination site where I had my first dose. So I showed up there. There was a lady was, you would say, the first line of checkups, right? So I went in there and she asked me, so first dose or second dose? No, that's my second dose. Then she looked and she said, oh yeah, but you got your first dose like almost 2 months ago. I said, yeah, I got my first dose 7 weeks ago. But the thing is, I was out of the country, I was working overseas, and now I'm back, and basically I'm here now. I said, oh yeah, but it's late. I said, okay, yeah. But anyway, it's not a problem because studies have shown that delaying the second dose to beyond 2 months, 2 to 3 months, could have even more beneficial effects. Could increase the potency of the vaccine. All right, so it's not a problem. I'm happy to get my dose now. So she said, okay. And then she asked me a series of questions. The first question was, have you had any fever in the last 48 hours? No. Do you have any symptoms of COVID? I said, no. Loss of smell, loss of taste? No. Have you had COVID, the disease, in the past? I said, no. Have you had any other vaccine in the last 2 weeks? I said, no. And then one of the questions was, have you been in contact with somebody diagnosed with COVID recently, in the last 14 days? So I said, well, the thing is, I'm a doctor. Yes, I see COVID patients in hospital, but I wear full PPEs, N95 masks, double masks, gloves, gowns, everything. I'm fully protected. She says, oh, so you've been in contact with a COVID patient, with COVID patients in the last 14 days. I said, well, I think the question for doctors is a bit difficult because doctors, nurses, healthcare workers are exposed to COVID patients every day. In a situation where you're in a hospital and you're in full PPE, yes, you are in contact with such patients, but so she says, no. The question is simple. Have you been in contact with somebody with COVID? I said, yes, I'm a doctor, so yes. So she says, okay, so you can't go in. You can't get vaccinated. You are a risk. Letting you into the vaccination center means that you're going to expose others to the disease and you might contaminate everybody. And I said, listen. Just think about this. I am a healthcare worker. I work in a hospital in full PPE. I'm fully protected. I'm not a risk. I got my first dose already. I'm here for my second dose. So what do you mean I'm not allowed to get in to get vaccinated? No, if you've been in contact with somebody with COVID in the last 2 weeks, you cannot come here. I cannot let you in. I said, listen, this doesn't make sense. Think about this. It doesn't make sense. You're just thinking in your little box here. But listen, healthcare workers, we're in a pandemic. Doctors, nurses are exposed to COVID patients every day. I'm an emergency doctor. Of course, I see patients with COVID every day. Still, I got my first dose of Pfizer and I'm here for my second dose. No, you can't. So I said, no, listen, this doesn't make sense. So she said, okay, I'm gonna speak to my supervisor. So she spoke to her supervisor and then she was talking on a walkie-talkie. And then another lady comes in, an older woman. So the first woman was probably in her early 20s. The second woman was in her 40s. And so the lady explained to her, yeah, so this guy is a doctor, so he's been exposed to COVID patients in the last 10 days, so we can't let him in. I mean, what should I do? She said, oh, okay, no, yes. So she spoke to me then. the second lady and said, yes, you can't get in because you've been exposed to COVID patients, so we can't let you in. So I said, guys, this is a joke. You guys are kidding. The whole premise of this vaccination process at the very beginning was to vaccinate healthcare workers first. We were the first people who were prioritized to get vaccinated because we were exposed to COVID patients, especially because we are exposed to COVID patients. So of course, if you're going to ask me if I've been exposed to somebody with COVID, yes, that's my job. That's why I need to get vaccinated. Oh yes, but yes, so you've answered yes to the question, so you can't come in. Green don't shoot, red you shoot. I told the lady, I want to speak to your manager. So she called the guy, this other guy, who comes in. As they come in, they're already discussing my issue, because it is an issue. And he comes in and he says, yes, so as the lady has explained to you, you can't get in. You can't get into this vaccination center. So I tell the guy, guys, please be logical about this and think this through. You will remember that when vaccines were first rolled out, healthcare workers were the first to be offered the vaccine, right? Right. Why is that? It's because healthcare workers are exposed to COVID patients more than anybody else. Right? Right. So obviously, if you're asking me if I've been exposed to a COVID patient in the last 2 weeks, of course, it's my job. That is why I need to be vaccinated. In fact, in some countries, it is now compulsory for healthcare workers to be vaccinated. You can't chase me away and say, you're not going to get in, you're not going to get vaccinated because you're a risk. Secondly, as you can see, looking at my vaccination card, I got my first dose in this very center. At the time when I had come for my first dose, you could say that I was even more at risk than now. Now, at least I've had my first dose. So according to statistics, I've got about 80 to 85 protection against COVID. And even if you lower this down to 60%, because of all the different variants, the point is, I am safer now than I was when I walked into the building 7 weeks ago, not having had any doses. So I'm safer now than I was 7 weeks ago, and now you're saying I'm not allowed to get in. Yes, but you answered yes to the question. I said, okay, so listen, if you've never seen a doctor, if you've never seen a nurse, if you've never seen a paramedic coming to get vaccinated, how do you deal with them? Oh yes, but you should have answered no to the question. Okay, so basically what you're saying is I should have lied. I should have lied to the question, right? Oh, no, that's not what I'm saying. So what are you saying? Well, you've answered yes to the question, you can't get in. Green hat, you don't shoot. Red hat, you shoot. Green, you don't shoot. Red, you shoot. So he continued saying that I was not going to be allowed into the building. And at the end, I told the guy, listen, you don't want to let me in. You are denying me the opportunity to get my second dose of Pfizer. Fine, I'm leaving. But two things. Firstly, I'd like to speak to your manager. I want to be sure that all of you who are part of management in this vaccination center are on the same page, and that you're saying that no doctor, no healthcare worker is allowed to come in here and get vaccinated. So the guy says, no, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, because you've been exposed to COVID patients, come back in 2 weeks, come back in 10 days, and then you'll be able to get vaccinated. Okay, so let me understand you clearly, right? From this point on, you want me to isolate in my house for 10 days and then come out of self-imposed isolation and get my vaccine. Yes. Number one, how would you know that? How will you know? How will you verify that I was isolating myself? Number two, are you telling me that all of us doctors and nurses working in hospitals, you really think that we go to a hospital, you get exposed with COVID patients, then after work, we self-isolate for 10 days, and after 10 days, we come out of isolation, we go back to work for 1 day, and then we go back into isolation for 10 days, and we work 1 day, 10 days off, 1 day on, 10 days off. Does that make sense to you? So the guy says, no, I don't know, come back in 10 days. I said, all right, I don't want to waste any more time here. I am leaving. But as I said, I want you to verify with the most senior person you can contact here and let me know that this is the position of this vaccination center, of this institution, that this institution is refusing to vaccinate doctors because they're exposed to COVID patients in hospital. Number two, whether you like it or not, I will get my second dose today. I'm gonna go into another center and I will explain to them that, yeah, I got my first dose in this place, but I'm coming here because I was chased away by you. And when I get home, I'm gonna upload this video and put it on social media so that people know that at this vaccination center, in this center, doctors are being denied vaccination. Healthcare workers are being denied vaccination. So the guy says, okay, wait. Let me make a phone call. I'll get back to you. So I told him, I'm gonna give you 5 minutes and then I'll be gone. So I waited outside. 5 minutes later, the guy comes in and says, okay, no, it's all sorted out. You can go in and you can get your vaccine. And then he escorted me in and I got my vaccine. So now I got my 2 shots of Pfizer, but I had to work to get my second shot. I've come to the conclusion that some people are just not wired to think outside the box. They need to be given guidelines, strict guidelines to work with, otherwise they won't be able to cope. The slightest change in the equation and their brain just... And that's why when I go to airport, when I travel, to the question, have you been exposed to any patient with COVID in the last 10 days or 14 days or whatever, I always answer, no. It's a lie. But it's a white lie. If I say yes, and that TSA person comes along and says, oh yes, but, and I said, yeah, but I'm a doctor and I know I'm not going to be able to fly. Because they cannot think outside the box. Their brain cannot function outside the little box they've been put in. They can only go by the guidelines. That reminds me of the story of the security guard and the CEO. Once upon a time, there was a CEO of a large corporation. So the guy was working till late, after hours, and at 9 o'clock at night, he finishes his work, leaves his office, and goes home. He takes the elevator down, walks through the entrance lobby of his building, and there he sees a security guard. So he tells the security guard, "Look, am I the only person left in the building?" So the security guard says, "Yes, sir, you are the last one." He says, "Okay, so I'm going home. Remember, tonight, nobody should come into this building after me. I'm going home. Don't let anybody in. Nobody has clearance to come in." That's very important. Something is going to happen tomorrow morning. Nobody must come in. All the employees have been advised, if somebody is trying to get in, they can't come in. Security guard says, "Yes, sir." And the CEO goes to his car. At his car, he remembers that he's forgotten an important document. So he leaves his car and wants to go back into the building. And at the entrance, the security guard stops him. And he says, "Sorry, sir, you can't get in." So the CEO says, "Come on, don't be ridiculous. I forgot something in my office. I'm just going back." And the guy says, "No, sir, you can't go in. Nobody is to go in until tomorrow morning. You told me that, sir." So the CEO said, "Yes, but I am the CEO. I am your boss. I'm the one who gave you that instruction. Now let me in. I need to go back and get some important documents." The guy says, "No, sir, there's no way I'm going to let you in. You can't go in. You told me nobody can get in." The guy says, "Listen, this is not funny anymore. Open this door, let me in. This is very important." The guy says, "No way, you're not getting in." He says, "Do you realize that I am actually the CEO of this corporation? I am your boss. I am the one who's paying you. Open the door." Security guard says, "No, sir, you're not getting in. Nobody's getting in. You said nobody must get in." All right, so the guy couldn't think outside the box. And a lot of people, unfortunately, are like that. They cannot read through the nuances of the guidelines they've been given. The people who can think outside the box are their managers. That's why they are managers. Well, not all, but sometimes you do find managers who are complete jackasses, You can just have a look at this whole handling of the pandemic, these public health doctors, the United Nations, various CDCs. It's been a mess from day one. Very senior people, senior doctors, at the highest level of healthcare management, they've completely messed up in their decisions. Now people are getting vaccinated, and now again, in the tradition of messing up and showing off their incompetency, they're busy telling people that if you've been vaccinated, you don't need to wear a mask. That's a topic for another day. Cheers.